I am Kai, last of the Brunanji. Millennia ago, the Brunanji led humanity to victory in the war against the insect civilization. The Time Prophet predicted that I would be the one to destroy the Divine Order and the League of 20,000 Planets. Someday, that will happen. But not today. As today is my day of death. The day our story begins.
Welcome back, friends.
Welcome back. Or I guess, welcome.
Welcome. I worship his shadow. I wonder if each shadow is different. Like, this is merciful shadow. This is divine shadow. The dark zone shadow. Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to the Dead Do Not podcast.
A Lexx rewatch.
Just a bumbling security guard in the great wide galaxy. Till one day he was dealt a different card in the form of a key. This key controlled the most powerful weapon ever made. Now he had it by sheer accident, or maybe it was fate. What a cast of characters all on the spacecraft traveling. A woman named Zev who escaped from her programming. A disembodied robot head that got brainwashed instead. And Kai, the always glum undead assassin. In this space adventure, you never know what comes next. So come join the crew for tales of sci-fi, laughter, and sex on the Dead Do Not podcast. Watching Lexx.
We watched Lexx, Season 1, Episode 1, I Worship His Shadow.
May his shadow fall upon you.
Well, no, it's called I Worship His Shadow. That's the
okay.
title of the episode.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I
Man.
was just following along with the call and response from the episode.
Like, I love Lexx, but this was a long fucking episode, and I think I watched it like 4 times because we'd watch it, and then I'd be like, okay, we're going to record, and then a bunch of shit would happen, and we couldn't record, and then I was like, well, we always do better when it's fresh, so let's watch it again, and then shit would happen, and we wouldn't record, and then, yeah, 4 times later,
Absolutely.
here we are. Are you excited about watching Lexx?
I am so excited.
I feel
About
like
watching
you
Lexx.
have more experience with Lexx than you did with Forever Night.
Yes, absolutely I did.
Yeah, even though
Yeah.
I regularly put on Forever Night, I feel like this is one that you watched like on your own, semi-voluntarily.
Yeah, me watching Lexx as a teenager was a voluntary thing.
Was it because of Zev?
Probably.
Probably, yeah. Let's all be honest. It was Zev. I don't think I've watched anything past season 1, so this is going to be
Yeah,
really fun.
I know they changed the actress
Yeah.
for Zev after season 2, I think.
Yeah, scheduling conflicts.
And I don't remember.
She becomes Zev with an X.
I vaguely recall maybe seeing episodes with Zev as a different actress and being confused because I didn't get to watch them in order.
Like, those aren't the same boobs.
Like
I
I
can't
didn't
watch this now.
It's the
God
face
damn
too.
it. Oh, okay. Yeah. There's also a face.
The actors and actresses have
We
faces.
should get a hold of the German version so we can actually see the nudity.
Right.
Yeah. I think that'd be really
I'm on board.
like, let's get the German DVDs. Yeah, I want to watch all of Lexx subtitled just so you can see tits. No, thank you. Not that I have any problem with subtitles, but also it's available in English. It's originally in English, and if I feel like half of the charm of Lexx is the delightfully Canadian accents. If you're Canadian, this might not hit the same, but if you're American, Canadians always sound really hyper and like peppy. And so to hear lines that are supposed to be really dramatic delivered in this like round, upbeat accent is it's a real treat. And
Yeah.
I'd be sad to lose that. We are not going to harp on the Canadian accents much, but
I promise.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, what did you say? But they are thick and fast in this, and I love it so much. I love
Especially
it.
Kai.
I feel like they're thicker in this than they are in Forever Night. Like this
Mhm.
is, I mean, Forever Night is a Canadian product made in Canada. Yes, Canada. But Lexx just feels, I don't know. It just, anyway, I guess we'll get into it. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Okay, because we start. I love how this starts with like a musical number because it's Kai, our last of the Brune and G. And this is his like voiceover at the beginning, which usually I'm mad about a voiceover, but I'm not mad about this voiceover because he's like, millennia ago, the Brune and G led the universe to victory against the insect civilization. So good to know they got it together and created a civilization, kind of like Planet of the Apes, but it'd be like Planet of the Wasps or something.
Planet of the Dragonflies.
Yeah, because that's what they're flying. And they're like standing up and they have these jaunty, colorful outfits. And he has like a brooch directly on his chest.
Oh, yeah, and fancy hairdo.
Everyone is quite padded in this too. He's quite padded.
It's probably cold.
Well, and is it cold in space? Thanks. I really love it.
It's very cold in space, Rachel.
It's just, I don't know, except for Zev. Zev wears like 2 handkerchiefs and some plastic. And then Kai is wearing like a quilted bed coat. I don't know what he's wearing, but he's wearing like a quilted onesie thing the whole time. Anyway, just putting that out there.
He's got layers.
Literally and figuratively. He keeps going. He's like, the Time Prophet predicted that the Brune and G, specifically me, the Brune and G, would be the one to destroy the Divine Order and the League of the 20,000 Planets.
20,000's a lot.
It kind of reminds me of in Babylon 5 where they have the League of Non-Aligned Worlds.
Yeah.
Like we're the group of people who don't want to be in a group, but this is the 20,000 planets. And he goes, someday that will happen, but this is not that day, as today is my day of death. And then like the day our story begins. And then we get our, as the captions titled it, non-English singing, where they're like jaunty singing their way into battle.
Yeah, they're singing a battle song
And
as they fly in against, I don't know, his Shadow's worship.
Yeah, his Divine Shadows web ship thing. Which they say the Lexx is the most, they keep saying that the Lexx is the most powerful ship ever created. But this one seems pretty powerful.
This one just scorches the surface.
Oh,
But
Lexx
can
blows up the whole planet.
fucking planet.
You're right. Okay. You're right. And when you're right, you're right. And you're always right. Okay, so we have a new pod lab, and Pippin is now rejoined us, and so he is very insistent. Okay, fine, you can get on my lap. Oh, you can't be on my notes, though. Pippin. Okay.
I'll get you an arm for your laptop.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to need it, clearly, because he was like, oh, opportunity knocks. So as the non-English singing progresses, we see the, like, space quilted, colorful outfits that they are flying around with these real jaunty beehive hairstyles, which it's not
It
just...
keeps the hair out of their eyes, except for the one lock that is deliberately in front of his eyes.
Right. He has the forelock thing, I guess, so he can tug it when he's anxious. I don't know. He's reading too many fantasy novels. Who is that? Robert Jordan. They're constantly tugging their forelock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or their braid, which he also has. He's got options. If he's really angry, he could pull his braid, or he could tug his forelock, or he could stroke his...
It's flexible.
His lofty beehive. Because he's got a beehive, and then he has his like thing in the front, and then he has a tail, like a braided tail that comes down the bottom.
Right.
In his back. Yeah, okay. Anyway, we have to cover it. It's choices were made. Lots and lots of choices were made. And my sister thought he was like the hottest man who had ever been on television. And we had to watch this specifically because she thought he was so handsome. He's not handsome. But it's like they looked at him and they were like, you know what you really need? Height. Just height. How can we get that? Heels? No, this is the 90s. We can't have a man wear heels on television.
Hair.
Tease that hair, motherfuckers. The closer you, the higher your hair, the closer to God.
Surprise. This is actually like an early ancestor of the Coneheads.
Mm.
Their head is actually that tall.
Oh, it's not his hair. He's literally just pulled it up into a ponytail on the top of his
hair
skull.
is not that long. It's just his head goes real high.
I would believe you, but everybody in all 20,000 planets are peopled by humans, as far as I can tell, except the cluster worms, the cluster lizards. So regardless of whether or not his hair is because he wants to be closer to God or because that's literally the shape of his head.
It's just how he was raised.
Yeah, they're standing up in these ships, which are actually dragonflies, and they're flying at this giant web, which is piloted by / commanded by / serving his shadow. And I would like to point out that Matt and I tried to make a drinking game out of this episode and to drink every time they say shadow, and we made it 31 minutes, during which time they said it approximately 39 times, and we almost died. So we're not going to do that again, but if you want to, might I suggest you just sip a drink every time they say
Yes.
shadow. Matt made it through half a bottle of margarita mix. So
That's like half a liter of 14%.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, this show, because I know it's considered like a dark comedy, but the parts of it that are dark are really fucking dark, because as they're flying at this ship, it is firing on the planet behind them and killing their entire race.
Right.
And so at a
the
certain
entire
point,
Brunanji society is getting immolated.
Yeah, and we hear screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Voices crying out and then suddenly silenced as this web is firing at the planet, and they're trying to defeat the Shadow Armada or army or whatever. And eventually they realize, like, shit, we failed. Our entire planet is dead. And so they tried to ram the control tower, but it just closes. And the only one who gets through is Kai, and his ship gets destroyed, and it just closes and it doesn't actually do any damage.
Right. And then his divine shadow walks up because they didn't even hurt him.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, Shadow, we are going to defeat you. And he's like, that's a divine shadow. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and correct you there. And Kai's like, the Brunanji will defeat you. And he's like, sorry, son, there are no more Brunanji. You're it. And Kai goes, no, I talked to the Time Prophet. And she was like, no, you specifically are totally going to destroy the shadow. And he's like, whatever, Time Prophet's full of shit. Then he stabs him. And that's the end of the opening sequence. Except for when they show up and they're like, okay, so we'll just go burn the body. And his divine shadow's like, nah. This guy is the last. What did he call him? This is the last of his, the last specimen of a culture of romantic dreamers. They were like the artsy culture, the like romantic,
which explains the hair and the outfits.
Yeah, and they're all gone now. And except for Kai, who apparently merits punishment beyond death.
Right. They were so horrible that he doesn't deserve to die.
Well, I think it was more of like this guy specifically is prophesied to be the one who will destroy me. And so I'm going to prove that I'm more powerful than prophecy by keeping this guy specifically alive.
Right. Which is
self-fulfilling?
Yeah, like classic villain mistake.
Yeah. Besides starting a land war in Asia.
Well, there's the whole like villain handbook.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of rules, like you don't monologue until after your like conquest is actually finished.
Yeah. Well, he didn't get the memo. You also don't get into a battle of wits with a Sicilian when death is on the line.
Right.
Yeah. Just throwing in some Princess Bride there. Anyway, so they take Kai to the quote biosculptors. I also love a sci-fi that's not afraid
bioscholars.
Sculptors, I think is what he says.
Oh, I thought it was scholars.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. You know why? Because I love a sci-fi that is not afraid to explain fucking nothing.
Right. And we get no context.
How are these insects flying in space? You don't know. We don't know. You don't care. We don't care. Look at that. We're all on the same page already. Just fly the fucking insects. And that's yeah, right? Like we don't know. We know later he has proto blood. We don't know what proto blood is. I think we actually figure that out eventually. But yeah, no one cares. No one needs to know.
At the end of the
It's
episode,
fine.
he tells everyone, like, the proto blood won't keep me animated for much longer.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go take a nap.
Yeah, wake me up only when you need me. I mean, anytime we get into a situation where you might want explanation, they're just like, ooh, look, a multicolored miniskirt. Ooh, look,
Right.
so shiny. Ooh. Don't look over here. Don't ask any questions. Just look at Barry Bostwick's package. Our guest star for this episode of television, of course, is Barry Bostwick, who plays Thodin. We haven't met him yet. We're getting there. So then the Shadow picks up a piece of the insect ship and he's like, insect, curious, which I guess is how we got the idea for the Lexx.
Right.
Yeah. And then very specifically, 2008 years later, we find ourselves in the cluster, which is just this giant complex on this planet.
Yeah, it's one giant interconnected structure on this, what looked like a very dead planet.
Yeah, except for the cluster.
Right.
Which is the capital of the League of 20,000 Planets. And then we pick up with one of our main characters, Stanley Tweedle.
Wake up call.
I love that name. I love that they were like, should he be named some kind of sci-fi name? And they were like, no, he's Stanley Tweedle. Just part of the comedy, so it works.
Yeah.
And he's in his bunk. And I love this info dump, which is just an info dump. Like, there's literally no reason to put this in here except to catch you up.
It also establishes that living in the cluster, living in this empire, whatever, you are subjected to like involuntary propaganda.
Oh,
All the
programming
time.
all the time.
All programming all the time.
Oh, I wonder if they could pay $2.99 to make the programming go away.
Yeah, like you have to pay to turn off your screen in your room.
Yeah. I was specifically referring to Amazon, but yeah, that too. And this is the like dark zone info dump where they're like, only a thin dimensional barrier separates us from the chaos of the dark zone. And the dark zone actually coexists. And we have this whole like
It's a
hand
parallel
wavy
dimension.
with balls, and then the balls overlap. And it's the same place, same time as our universe. And we give thanks to his divine shadow for protecting us from the horror and disorder of the dark zone.
The dark zone.
We promised. I'm trying. I love this creepy face. I kind of want this creepy face to be my phone screen. Like when I talk to Alexa, I want I want this to be the face that talks back to me. Can we make that happen?
There are several open source virtual assistants.
Yeah. This needs to
I
be
could
one
probably
of them.
make a plugin
Yeah.
for a version with a screen that uses this face and has like just the static eyes and nose, and only the mouth moves when it talks, and only a little bit.
Yeah.
And not at all like a human mouth moves.
I love this face so much. And I love this part where the face is looking at Stanley and Stanley looks at the face and the face keeps looking at him. And then it's like, get the fuck up.
Get out of bed.
Get out of bed. It's trying to wake him up or he'll get 7 demerits. And he already has 991 demerits.
At what point, like from a systems like design perspective, I'm trying to incentivize human beings to behave in a certain way. At what point in this system do you not realize that maybe the demerit system doesn't work?
Isn't working, yeah.
If you're getting demerits in increments of like 7, and this guy has almost 1,000.
Well, I think this is specifically Stanley Tweedle, because look at what the punishment for his minor infraction later is death or the loss of 1 to 3 organs. So they're probably hoping that the severity of the final punishment will be enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is for everybody but Stanley. But remember, Stanley thinks he has an exception because he's
That's
a
right.
designated data coordinator.
Which means he betrayed
He's
his.
the
They
Astral
got him
B
to switch
pair.
sides
Yeah.
and give them critical information.
Right.
It'd be interesting to have a prequel of
Stanley Tweedle.
here's Stanley Tweedle before he was completely neurotic after years of living under the tyranny
Of the Shadow.
As a cooperator.
Yeah.
What was Stanley like as a high level member of the resistance?
He wasn't a high level. He was like an assistant to a courier.
Well, but he had teeth with secret information.
Yeah, but that's because he was a courier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, he wasn't like a high up, and he was literally just, and he's not even like the courier. He was like the second assistant courier. He says it later. He's like, all I was like a second assistant courier. Like, I don't know what. Everybody's so mad at me because he gave up. But he was carrying crucial information. Anyway. So he has 991 demerits, and this is when the face stares at him like really creepily.
And he finally crawls out of bed.
And finally he's like, which I hate his mesh blanket. Can you imagine you're sleeping in this like cubby because it's sort of like a Japanese capsule hotel,
right,
that everybody stays in, and his only blanket looks like a mesh shirt from the 80s. And that's it. Maybe they're all temperature controlled. It's fine. So we cut to this ship in space, and this is where I feel like I need to comment on how much I love the music in this show, because you'll be like, oh, we're just having this cool moment where Stanley's waking up and we're learning about the dark zone, and then it's like boom, this like ship is flying through
there's
space.
it's a very recognizable style of this boom chicka chicka boom.
Yeah.
And it happens after any transition where you end up in space and you're seeing CG.
Yeah.
You get this percussion.
Yeah.
Sequence.
Except when the Lexx finally takes off at the end and it's like
ooh, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe the sound that you're hearing is the ship's propulsion.
Let's go with that.
And
sure.
And you're hearing the boom.
Yeah, they've all of their propulsion just has a
Empires.
sick beat. Yeah, got it.
But then the Lexx has a different style because it's a different technology.
Yeah.
The engines work differently.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they're commencing the revival sequence because they've made it through the frontier, and this is a prison transport. And so the face pops up again, and it's like, you're going to be diverted to another gate because there's a bulkhead malfunction.
Right.
Which, okay, it just means
Sure.
they're going to go to Stanley's gate, so it's
Right.
fine. And then the guy walks down, and the first prisoner in line is dead, and he goes, number 11, freeze dried again.
Oops.
And then we go past the
I'll
woman.
submit a ticket to get that fixed.
We go past the woman wearing a people suit, who we find out later is Chigurata.
Yeah.
And she played in 2 episodes of Forever Night, actually. She played in Trophy Girl. She's the lady who runs the escort agency.
Mm-hmm.
And she plays in False Witness, where she is the dominatrix who has the videotape hidden in her flower pot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those were very specific references. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch Forever Night and then listen to Come In Anyone Kilo. And then we get this poor woman, which I always feel bad for actresses who have to play the ugly, I hate saying that word, the unattractive, less traditionally attractive version of a character that's going to be the sex symbol for the show. I just feel so, because then she has to sit there while this guy tells her, I've seen a lot of women in my time, but you're the ugliest.
Right. And then she responds
Well,
probably in the way that she expects would avoid any punishment.
Right, because he says, doesn't that mean anything to you? And she goes, nothing means anything to me. Handsome. I don't know why she has to.
Yeah, anyway.
He shocks her and she passes out. And this whole exchange is not the best moment in this episode. And then we go on to like a bug in the back, this weird bug transport pod thing. And they look in the slot and we just see Barry Bostwick's eyes looking back out at us. And it's like the really, really evil guy in the prison transport, Thodin. They're like, your day of reckoning is coming, Thodin. And then we like pan out and there are a ton of prisoner transports.
Yeah, there's just like a dozen of them all coming
dozens of them all coming in all at the same time. And then as they fly by the stadium thing, the Lexx is up on the hill.
Oh, first look.
Yeah. And then we come back to Stanley. And Stanley is throwing pieces of metal at this robot's ass and trying to get them to bounce off into this grate.
Right, there's like a waste disposal or something.
This is a really good way for us to sort of introduce the Stanley character and how just sort of a waste of space poor Stanley is. Not only does he have 991 demerits.
In a bureaucratic nightmare,
yeah,
Stanley Tweedle is the monkey wrench in the gears.
Yeah, but not actively so. Just it's like weaponized incompetence.
Yes.
That's what Stanley is.
I would say that's a good description of his role in this whole system.
Yeah, in every system, really.
Yeah.
And then the ship from earlier requests a docking beam. And he's like, cool, can you give me the code? And they're like, nobody asked for the code anymore. He's like, okay, well, you need to give me the code, which in his defense, that could be a trick. Nobody asked for the code anymore. I mean, it could be a trick because someone's trying to get him, but it could also be like, is he going to push it? Is he going to ask for the code? And so they end up giving him the code and it's incorrect. And she's like,
right. She just like bashes some numbers on the keyboard.
Yeah. And Stanley's like, well, wrong code. And she's like, I can't remember the code. And he's like, well, then I guess I can't turn on the docking beam.
Right. And so here's another glimpse into the kind of systems that are operating in this empire. They've gotten complacent. Everything's been conquered for 1,000 years, 2,000 years. You don't need to follow tight security protocols when
everyone works for you.
Of the probability of someone actually trying to sneak in to your capital city planet thing is so low. You just don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I don't care. You don't care. It's fine. But Stanley, in this one instance, is actually concerned with doing his job. Probably because it gives him satisfaction to not let this person in.
Right. And I think in general, he follows the letter of the rules that he's agreed to.
Yeah, he just doesn't go above and beyond them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And he does actually get a piece of metal in the grate.
Quiet quitting.
Yeah, he's quiet quit a long time ago. So he turns the screen off because this woman doesn't have the right code, so fuck her. And then he finally gets a piece of metal in the grate and it like explodes and fire is shooting out of it just as another person shows up. And they turn to the screen with the prison transport lady on it and they're like, I am so sorry that this guy's an idiot. Actually, he goes, I worship his shadow. To which the response is, may his shadow fall upon you. In case you want to use that in everyday life. Let's practice right now. I worship his shadow.
May his shadow fall upon you.
Thank you. And he's like, don't worry. I'm gonna make sure this guy is punished for not letting you in. He'll have to go. And she's like, I want him to be demoted. And they're like, oh, he's already as low as you can go. Sorry. Class 4 is the lowest. And he has a 4 on his hat. Everybody has their rank on their hat.
Yeah.
And so the guy's like, cool. You have to go at the end of the shift and report to like corrections to be punished. And Stanley's like, great. Because the guy goes, may his merciful shadow fall upon you. And then he walks off and Stanley goes, may his merciful shadow fall upon me, preferably.
So I felt like that was kind of a dig at Stanley by only saying the response part. And so Stanley's kind of just left hanging.
Yeah.
So this guy's like, it's not even worth me going through the motions of
interacting with
this standard like salutation.
Yeah.
Because like you're so far below me.
Yeah.
And I don't like you.
And then we cut to them rushing an unconscious shadow into this big spooky building.
Right. So this is like the priests, I guess. of his divine shadow, like the top tier of his
the Endermites
empire
to
of
his...
bureaucracy.
Yeah, yes. And
They fucked up.
yeah, they fucked up because they let the first shadow get real bad before they started prepping for the next shadow body. And so they're rushing him into this building and they're like, oh shit, we need to like cleanse this dude who we've tried to make look real tough by giving him like a tattoo on, like shaving his head and giving him a tattoo on his head. And he's like struggling and he knocks one of the little priests over and they die. They're on the ground for like the rest of the scene.
Oh, because they get electrocuted.
Shocked. Yeah. And so that's supposed to be wiping his brain, but they only do it once and they don't sedate him. And they're like, okay, we got to do it again. And they're like, nah, no, we don't have time.
We don't have time.
We don't have time.
So either the priests fucked up or the shadow fucked up because he deliberately told them to like keep going. Like, we don't need to hurry back.
Yeah.
I'll be fine. Stop coddling me or I'll kill you.
Yeah.
And then he collapses and they're like, shit, now we gotta rush.
Oh, shit. Right. I hate it when this happens.
I hate it when his divine shadow doesn't follow procedures.
They're like, what if we didn't get it all? And they're like, nah, it's fine. He's strong. He'll make a good host. And so they put this thing in his mouth, this like funnel thing, and like lean him over the unconscious previous shadow.
We saw with Kai, when he killed Kai, he sucked up some
memories,
wispy energy thing from Kai, and we saw some flashes of memories.
Yeah, so he performs the kiss. They're like, shadow, divine shadow, perform the kiss. And he sends all of his memories, his essence, one might say, his purity of essence, into the other guy.
Yeah, and he wakes up.
Host. Yeah. And he like wakes up, opens his eyes, and then we get this cool transition to like these nice black sclera contacts. It's a cool moment. And they're like, oh, good, we made it in time. And then they like slightly wheel the old guy off. And then we just hear like as they cut the brain out of the old shadow.
Right. And then they put it into this little.
They had to make so many fake brains for this. Do you think there was one intern were like, make fake brains? And he was like, how many? And they were like, yes.
Just keep cranking them out.
However many you can get. You just do it, man. And he was like, I mean, okay, do you want them to look bloody? They're like bloody, juicy, slick, all the things. I want these gross. And he was like, cool, I can do that. And then they had another guy working on fake organs. It was a whole thing. It was like a non-union sweatshop of organ production. And then they cut his brain out with this like scoop, which looks like a kitchen implement of some kind. It's like a serrated scoop on one end. And then like
you have to cut the connections like to the spinal cord.
And they even make like a
and stuff.
Like a
oh yeah. Yeah, the sound guys had a great time.
I honestly forgot how much body horror was in this. I don't know. I must have blocked it out.
It's real heavy in this episode. I don't think
it goes back to this.
There's an episode
like, actually.
where Kai gets sliced into like 100 slices of his entire body and like spread out.
Of course he does.
Yeah. Anyway, the body horror continues.
The body horror.
Just at a slower pace.
Yeah.
I think.
They packed in a lot.
Same intensity.
They were like, let's start here. And then when we come back here, it'll feel all right. It'll feel all right.
It'll feel like
we'll go hard so that we don't have to go hard later. Sound good to everybody? And they were like, yeah, that's fine. Okay, fine. Well, tell Steve we need more brains. So now this thing gets put in the brain. The brain gets put in this little container.
A brain container.
A brain box. And they like put a little plastic cover on it that has a little face. And then they plug this thing in it and it lights up and now it gets to talk. So isn't that lovely? And they put it on this pillar and it rises up where all the other brains and boxes are. And now it becomes a divine predecessor. And it gets to live on all the big pillars with all of its divine predecessor friends. And then they unhook our new host after his eyes go fully black. So he has become the shadow. And then his cloak just disappears off one body and puts it on the other one, which is like, is his cloak also him? Is his cloak some form of nanotechnology?
Yeah, and they no context.
They're like, I'm sorry, but we will explain nothing.
So this is a cool idea of having like a continuous ruler, and they just body swap when
Oh, it kind of reminds me
when
of
the
in
one wears out.
Mistborn.
I was thinking, where have I seen this style done before? And there's Ginyu in Dragon Ball Z, who's the head of the Ginyu Force, who works
Yeah.
for Frieza, and he has this body swap technique, energy technique, and he's like, they mention it eventually that, oh yeah, that big purple body, yeah, that's not his original body. He's
Yeah.
been body swapping for a while, and he always body swaps into a more powerful body.
I feel like body swapping is a thing. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I recall something's ringing a bell of another series, another story, probably a book where the ruler just body swapped each time.
Mistborn.
Well, he didn't body swap. The emperor.
Oh, he just took over a body. I thought he
It
body
was
swapped.
no. There's
doesn't matter.
there's the two powers.
Yeah.
And
It's happened somewhere
that
before.
use
I
the
guarantee
same
it.
metal.
Yeah.
And one of them you can store life energy in a metal,
Yeah.
and the other one you can burn that metal and like restore your body, heal. And so you get more out of it when you burn the metal. And so he can store his own life energy into like a gold ring, and then he can like shave down the gold ring and burn it and get back like 10 times more life energy. And so he's just infinite regeneration.
Gotcha.
And it keeps him young for 1,000 years or 2,000 years, whatever.
I mean, this is done, so it's fine. But he rises up on this pillar.
But the stagnation of an empire with a single continuous ruler over eons,
like Foundation,
is established.
Yeah.
There's lots of precedents for if you have a single ruler for a really, really, really long time, things go bad.
Yeah. They must not transfer memories, though, because later we find the one guy who saved Kai. He's the only one that knows that Kai is Brun and G.
Right.
So they must just transfer essence and then kind of allow the new ruler to learn from the predecessors, but
I think
not
there's
be the
some
predecessors.
memories, but it's just like a selection.
Oh, yeah.
Highlights reel.
So the new host puts on his old cloak, which looks very layered. Describe that. And he ends up rising up on the pillar, and he's like, divine predecessors. And they're like, oh, yay, our new friend. May your reign be long and orderly. And he's like, yes, I will serve order. I will serve you, and I will serve myself. And they're all like,
collective gasp of electronic voices.
You son of a bitch. And he's like, yeah, okay, so I didn't get fully cleansed, so I'm a little bit shadow, but I'm also a little bit human, and that means that I'm better than everybody. And they're like,
specifically a psychopathic human.
Yeah, and they're like, why didn't we equip our brain boxes with like offensive weapons? They could like fly up and become independently operating miniature flying drone machines, where they could like pew pew pew.
Maybe because they each knew that the whole group, the swarm of divine predecessors, was always a potential threat to their rule.
What do you call a group of shadows? A reckoning. I don't know. So then he's like, the Lexx will be fully grown soon, and then we can hit the enemies of the League of 20,000 Planets, and we can like selectively destroy the opposition. And the divine predecessors are like, okay, but how will you know what planets to strike? Well, that's what the guy says, actually. The new shadow guy is like, how will I know what planets to strike? And they're like, well, that's where your wisdom comes in.
That's literally your job.
That's where the thinking part comes in. Maybe we can follow some clues. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, then I'll just kill them all. Let's see. Survey says everybody's bad. Let's just kill a lot of them.
They can't rise up against me If I kill all of them.
If I kill all of them. It kind of reminds me of in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where we meet that race of people.
Oh, the crickets.
Yeah, where their entire planet is surrounded by like an impenetrable fog. And
Yeah.
when they finally rise out of it and they see the stars and they realize that every one of those stars has the potential to have a planet like theirs, and that there are literally more sentient races in the universe than there are grains of sand on the beach. And they go, yeah, that's all got to go.
Yep.
And they just, a spaceship crash lands on their planet. That's what happens. And then they reverse engineer it. And within like a couple of months, they have a
functioning
space armada.
spaceship. Yep.
Yeah. And the new Shadow is like, I'm going to command the Lexx and I'm going to go out and punish the enemies, that being all of them, all of everyone, everywhere, the enemies of order. And because my host brain wasn't fully cleansed, like, I'm ready for destruction. You know what I'm saying? And the brains are like, no, you can't leave the cluster. And he's like, fuck prophecy, man. Like, who cares? I don't care. I haven't died yet. It's been 2,000 years. I think I'm going to be okay. And they're like, no, if you ever leave the cluster, you will die. And he's like, yeah, bullshit. The Brune and G have been extinct for 2008 years. I think I'm good. And then he leaves.
Well, he's like, it's not that I can't leave the cluster.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with leaving the cluster is not having access to your collective wisdom
Yeah.
of the
So
divine
you guys
predecessors.
are all coming with me.
Road trip.
Yeah. He's like, they're like, no, you can't leave. What will you do without us? And he's like, without you? Oh my God, who said I was going to leave you behind? And so he puts them in this like brain ship, a larger brain box, one might say. And then they fly off and they're like, we're doomed. No, we're all going to die.
It's like when you put your smaller Tupperware into a bigger Tupperware.
Yeah. The brainception. Because the one brain is like, you know, they're like, no, we're going to be fine. The prophecy's definitely like, I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay. Because the prophecy did say the Brune and G, and like, they've been gone for a while. And then the one brain is like, oh, sorry, guys. Actually,
I kept one.
I kind of kept one. And they're like, what? No. They're like, the prophecy is upon us. We will all go extinct. And this is when we see the memories of Kai talking to the prophet. I love this section so much because we finally meet the time prophet, because he mentions the time prophet at the beginning. And then when we actually see the memories of Kai, we see the time prophet, and the time prophet is like, I have the strength to answer one question. And I want that on a t-shirt. Like, you get one question.
Yeah. That'll
And
be
then-
on our Lexx merch.
Right. Because I feel like as a parent, you totally understand that vibe of like, okay, I know that you're confused and you have clarifying questions, and I'm happy for you. Pick your best one and hit me with it. And this is when Kai is like, will the forces of his shadow destroy us? And the time prophet is like, well, you know, time had a beginning and an end, and then it kind of just begins all over again. And in an age yet to come, in an age long past, for there are no beginnings or
Paraphrased.
endings in the wheel of time. When the shadow leaves the cluster, the Brune and G will destroy them. This will happen. It has happened. Yeah. No, we're going to get defeated today, but then don't worry. You're going to get revenge eventually. And then the brains continue there. No. And then we go back to Stanley. And Stanley's just sitting there while prisoners are being wheeled past. On every time we watched him, Matt was like, that's Unistrut. I've bought that. That's how I made my desk. And then he was like, okay, so wait. Could they have bought that at Lowe's? Like in the Lexx universe? Could not the prop guys, but like the people who built the cluster.
Right.
Anyway, these people are being wheeled by. And one of them recognizes Stanley. And he's like, Stanley Tweedle? You son of a bitch. You're the traitor.
The arch traitor.
The arch traitor Stanley Tweedle. And this is our first hint that Stanley Tweedle is anything other than just our mild-mannered security guard. I mean, he still is just a mild-mannered security guard.
Yeah.
But at a certain point in his life, he made poor choices. But this guy falls off the track, like the bolt on his thing comes undone, and he falls off the track, and it just goes...
We get a nice splash.
Kind of like when you step on a ketchup packet.
Yes.
and it squirts out.
Very much like that.
Yeah. And then we come to another one of my favorite scenes, which is the trial scene. And it's where they reel the prisoners up. And then like a hologram of a judge and a hologram of two lawyers appear. And then they have, quote, court. They hold
Right.
court
Pre-recorded
for these
snippets.
Yeah, pre-recorded court for these people. And then every time they have to fill in information unique to that individual, it freezes and then it just does like a computer voice.
Yes.
It's like, you are charged with, and then it's like
It hits the vibe so hard.
it does. It's so good. This is like post-consumer capitalism, communism, like all packaged in this
It's
awful.
just like the funeral process in
Ow.
Enemy Mine.
Yes. Yes, it is just that is exactly what it's like. Where we in Enemy Mine, there's a scene where we're panning up to the space station and we see a wreath come by and we hear like an organ and this guy is giving a service. And then it starts to skip. And then we go to the room where they're actually disposing of bodies.
There's
and
a conveyor belt with bodies.
Yeah.
And as each body gets up to the end of the conveyor belt, there's an operator there. And they're like, oh, this one's Christian or this one's Catholic.
Yeah, or
or
this guy's an atheist. We don't have to play anything. And they just send him out and then they push a button and it shoots a wreath out after them. And there's just like a dispenser for wreaths. just filled with wreaths. That's exactly what it feels like. The cheapness of human life sort of thing.
Yes.
So the first guy is someone who stopped paying the temple. And this is really just to show us that the situation is serious. Like we have to have somebody who gets convicted and gets punished so that we know what typical punishment looks like. And that's this guy. So they end up doing like a memory search where they stick this probe in his brain or at least on his head. And then we see his memories, which start with like a sex scene.
Of course.
And then cut to people trying to get him to donate to the temple. And he's like, no, I'm not going to pay anymore. And they're like, okay, guilty. Sentenced to have his individual life terminated. But his organs will live on in the making of robotic drones. So all of those robots have people parts. And the rest will go to the protein bank to be recycled for purposes that serve his shadow.
We never talk about where the stuff in the protein bank goes.
What the fuck?
Probably Soylent Green is people.
Yeah.
But
well, it goes to the giant thing that's eating all of the...
I don't know if that's like so they fought the insect civilization.
Yeah.
The Brunanji obviously like made use of something.
Is that what's growing the Lexx?
That was my first suspicion.
Yeah.
Is this machine?
This is another thing where they were like, do you really want to know?
There's dozens of conveyor belts full of bags of human organs and meat and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's all going like dozens of conveyor belts into this giant opening with a bunch of robotic hands.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't know, sorting it, whatever.
It's not robotic hands. It's like tentacles at the end of a beast.
Well, they look metallic. It looks like a giant mouth.
This is another situation where it's like, do you guys really want to know? You don't really want to fucking know, do you? Let's just leave it. And I love that they leave it because it just leaves us with this, what the shit is happening?
Yeah, like how much of their technology is like semiconductors and stuff.
Yeah.
And how much of it is like we defeated this insect civilization and they had obviously done some things so that they could travel in space.
Yeah.
The Brunanji had these little fighters that look like dragonflies.
Yeah.
Like are we growing insect like bodies without brains, or do we like scoop the brains out afterward?
I don't know. They don't explain it, and I love that they don't explain it. But he gets tracked over to an organ remover, and it's literally
has an outline
like
for the
outlines
organ
of all
shapes.
the organs, and then there's like these little saws going around the outline. It's like, and the whole thing is covered in blood.
Yeah.
And it just looks gross. And there's even a little cutout. There's like his lungs and his liver and his heart and his kidneys and his testicles down at the bottom. And I was like, did you catch that? Matt goes, what? And I rewound it and he was like, oh my God. And then all of it falls into an eye wash bowl. Like this is just an eye wash bowl and it falls in there. And then it gets kind of carted off.
Well,
And then-
right before it gets carted off, a brain falls on top.
Yes.
Ugh.
And then like the rest of it falls down and it gets bagged in this plastic. We watch it get bagged in this plastic bag and then go down the chute to a conveyor belt. And then we pan out and there's like 100 conveyor belts and they are all packed full with bags full of human flesh. And they are all heading towards the whatever. And we even committed to the meaty, gross, like thump into the eye wash bowl. This Foley artist was either grossed out the entire time or having the time of their lives. And then we cut back to Stanley because what did we need in this moment but a break? And so we go back to Stanley and he goes to the desk and he's like, oh my God, so there's this guy, Stanley Tweedle, and he's supposed to be reporting today, but he's refusing to turn himself in.
He just won't cooperate with me. I need some leverage.
Yeah, maybe you could tell me what the punishment will be and then I could convince him to come. And the guy's like, oh, okay, let me look it up. And he goes, oh, yeah, if he's not here at watch change, termination order immediately. And he's like, termination? Like, we're going to kill him, but he's a designated data cooperator. And the guy goes, oh, DDC, eh? And then he's like, oh, no, that expired 6 months ago. Because Stanley goes, he
He's
might
no
be
longer
needed sometime
protected.
for vital information. And he's like, no, it's not that vital anymore.
Nope.
Maybe because they caught Thoden.
Maybe because they caught Thoden.
Yeah.
Maybe because they were finished, like the Lexx was almost finished growing.
Yeah.
They didn't need anything else.
Yeah. But he's like, well, if it was just this offense, then he makes a snip notion. He goes, cauterization. Cauterization. He goes, but with 991 demerits, it's 1 to 3 organs. And Stanley's like, 3 organs? What 3 organs? And he's like, oh, standard combo. Eye, kidney, testicle. Depending on demand, and demand is high, so probably we'll do 3. And Stanley goes, but it was just a mix-up. And the guy goes, life's a mix-up. And he goes, triple organ is better than termination, right? And Stanley's like, I guess. And so he wanders off sadly as all these robots are whizzing by, and he ends up kicking one.
Yeah.
And then we come back to Zev's trial. And she is being accused of failing to do her wifely duties and embarrassing her husband in the temple, which feels like something I could literally be charged for in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I could be. And then we see her memories. And I love her husband. It is like if you opened any 1990s teen girl magazine and you had like heartthrob models,
They have this haircut.
this is the guy. The mushroom cut with the middle part. This haircut is back. He's a child. And he's like, oh my God, you guys are trying to marry me off to this cow? And she's like, but I love you and I'll serve you forever. And he's like, gross. And so she punches him in the face, which might be why Zev is my favorite character. Because even when Zev is not part cluster lizard, even when Zev does not have all of the advantages she eventually gets, Zev's already feisty, which I love. And so, of course, she's found guilty because she punched him straight in the face. And she's sentenced to be transformed into a love slave and given to a seminary to be used for their pleasure. And she's like, actually, could we give my organs?
I volunteer for the protein bank.
She's like, I volunteer for the protein bank. Can we just kill me, please? I don't want this terrible life anymore. And then we cut back to the walking bug thing. Because this is when we really start like snip, snip, snip. This is our setup episode.
Yeah, there's
we have
so
a lot
much
to set
context
up,
here.
and we have to get it all in an hour and a half. And it is rapid fire from this point on. Because we go to the walking bug thing, and it's headed to trial. And our holographic guys appear, and they're like, okay, Thoden of Austral Be Pair, who's in there. Your trial is actually going to be transferred to the stadium where you will be tried and punished for entertainment purposes. So we get deferred from figuring out who this guy is one more time. And we go back to Zev, and Zev gets like laid down under what I assume is like the biosculptor. And they put this eye thing over her eye, like a tanning bed eye thing.
Yes, to protect her eyes from the radiation.
And then she gets a little video that's like, as soon as this sentence is carried out, you'll be cleansed of your crime. You're good to go. And then we go back to the stadium, because this is our rapid fire change moment. And we get the music, the like opera synth combo, the like synthesizer music with operatic singing in the background. I kind of like it. I kind of like it a lot. And then we find out that in this pod thing is the pirate, heretic, rebel of the Austral B pair, Thoden. And then the bug opens for the reveal of the big evil bad guy who's been in this pod the whole time. And it's Barry Bostwick in a leather vest and a loincloth. A rainbow loincloth.
Should I recognize who Barry Bostwick is?
He played in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh.
We're going to watch something with him in it, and we'll put it on Strange and Beautiful Book Club. And you'll be like, oh, that guy.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And he's like, yes, my moment has come. Not only to show off my, like, it's not even a rainbow loincloth. It's like plastic chunks all sort of like connected together.
Yeah.
So we get like it's got good movement, you know what I'm saying? And we get like all of his inner thigh because he's sitting there with his like, he's man spreading in a loincloth, a breech clout, one might say. And he ends up pushing this bug bomb out of his nose, which it's like a little
It's an interesting practical effect.
dragonfly. Yeah.
And so we rewatched it a couple times to try to figure out how they did it. But he had to have something in his nose. Anyway, they pull this thing out of his nose.
No disrespect to any other character, but Bug Bomb is my favorite character in this whole episode. Because his voice is so cute. Bug Bomb searching Thoden. Like is and then he's like, Bug Bomb malfunction. And he falls off. Oh, it's so cute. And he's like a little stop motion guy.
Flicked by
Stanley Tweedle, yeah.
Which just starts the malfunctions.
Yeah, because we get a long POV of Bug Bomb, and he's like, Bug Bomb searching Thoden, because he's trying to find the sensor that goes to the things holding his hands, so it will free him. And as he's flying through the corridor looking for it, Stanley swats it and knocks it down. And then we cut to a view of like the worms, and these are the cluster lizards who are going to be our main antagonists for the whole second half of this episode because they eat literally everybody and they get everywhere. But they're like attacking the bars and fighting each other, and everyone in the auditorium or stadium is cheering. And we covered that Stanley is now running away. Like he turns around because he's like, no, I'm just going to face termination. I don't want to lose a testicle. And then he's like, you know what? Better than dying. And so he turns around to run back. And that's when he spots the bug bomb because he's rushing to try to get back. And he ends up getting there too short. Like he shorts it.
The door slams right in front of him.
I know. And then we come back and I wrote down all of the things that Thoden is charged with. So are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
26 counts of piracy, influencing the minds of believers, doubting his shadow, destroying 231 vessels loyal to his shadow, training people to stand up to his shadow, slandering clerics on 11 planets, and 6 counts of blasphemous self-aggrandizement. That was hard to say after that whole list. 6 counts of blasphemous Please say
aggrandizement.
Aggrandizement. Thank you. I want that, like, if I ever get charged to something, I want it to be self-aggrandizement. Like, I thought I was better than I was. And then Stan, he misses his thing. And then the bug bomb reactivates. It's like, wee, 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 wee. It's a little bug bomb
Searching
sound.
Thoden.
Yeah. Bug bomb restarted Thoden. And he, like, flies off. And then he locates the target conduit, kind of misses it, and then comes
Every
back.
time he locates it, like, there's this... He's like, okay, we see this little like
sensor
diagram,
come out.
like a schematic of the restraints, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna blow this up or interfere with this, whatever I need to do.
Yeah,
and then it falls off.
Yeah,
but then we
see
it says something about activating the explosive. And then each time it shows we see like the bug bomb's perspective POV. There's this little clock in the top right corner
that's counting down. Yeah.
And by the time it explodes, it's on the wrong line.
I love it when it falls down and it goes, bug bomb lost head, because its head falls off. And then we cut to these families, and it's kind of like Girl Guides. It's a bunch of kids with like
Right.
patches and hats, and they're showing up because they're there to receive an award for their youthful devotion, which is the greatest in the 20,000 planets. And they're arriving in the hangar, and of course, they only get a holographic priest guy. And he's like, you are the youngest 50 of the most loyal of his shadow's subjects, and we're going to give you medals, and then you're going to go back and dedicate your life to the shadow. And then we cut back to Thodin in the arena, and Thodin is like, sheeple, wake up. He's like, you're being manipulated, can't you tell? And they're like, we don't care. Kill him graphically. And then Bug Bomb, aw, Bug Bomb has such a small part, but it has so much impact because then he locates the signal again and falls off again. And then it's like, I'm going to blow up. Like, I can't help it. It's like, explosion imminent. And then it ends
crosses
up exploding.
signals between all the stuff controlling the stadium and the stuff controlling the like award ceremony.
Yeah.
So the holograms start to switch.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is the result of a like stagnant bureaucratic monstrosity where each individual has so little like autonomy or independence or like influence over how the system operates. Everybody just has to trust the system because the system's been operating for hundreds of years without issues. But then when there's a malfunction in the system, there's no like big off button.
Yeah.
Nobody can go in and override.
Right, because they've never needed it before.
Because all the control signals that are like telling everything connected to the stadium that this individual, Thodin, is the target. He's being punished. Like we're submitting transactions to his official record.
Yeah.
When that gets diverted and the punishment like transaction gets sent to the award ceremony, now it actually gets applied just all automatically to
the little children who
to
have
all the
arrived
kids
to get medals because they're getting like, oh, you guys are the best. We're giving you medals. And then it switches and it's like, you have been condemned to be consumed by cluster lizards until dead.
And then the transaction to update all the kids' records with this like merit badge, I don't know, award goes to Thodin. Like, wow, that's
And then the cluster lizards get released into the room full of children.
They kind of did it to themselves.
And then the cluster lizards eat all the children.
Right, and it even opens all the doors for the cluster lizards to get to the kids.
Were the cluster lizards? We only ever see them attacking the bars. We never get a location on where they are.
They can see Thodin. And Thodin looks at them.
Okay.
So that means the kids are like right underneath the
stadium. They go from being in the stadium, which feels like it should be self-contained, to being in literally every room of the entire place. And there's only like 10 of them. Unless they had a whole bunch of cluster lizards. And when the bug bomb broke down everything, it just released all the cluster lizards.
When it punished every single kid to be consumed by cluster lizards, it's like, oh, this one cage of cluster lizards is not sufficient because the cluster lizards are going to get full before they eat everybody.
Yeah, we'll just open everything up.
We need more cluster lizards.
Right. I mean, it is the cluster and they are cluster lizards, so they would have an excessive number of cluster lizards, I would say. And then we get the image of the bloody medal, like the merit medal on the floor. And then they're like, just as the cluster lizards get free and they're coming into the stadium, because they get into the crowd and start eating people in the crowd. And then Thodin's little pod closes and he's like,
now he's the only one protected.
I know. And then we go back to Zev, because remember Zev, she's still getting transformed into a love slave. And we've like, boop, 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 chosen her hair, which will be baby blue. And apparently at the time, like baby blue hair dye was not available. So they used the same dye that they used to make blue colored marshmallows. And they would dye her hair every day because they thought a wig would look too fake.
Wow.
Anyway, remember how we joke about Forever Night, how part of the budget was cocaine? I feel like everybody in this show is actually just working for cocaine instead of pay, except the guy who plays Kai. He gets paid money, but all of his money gets donated to charity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the vibe. That's the vibe of the show. How did a cluster lizard get in here? It doesn't matter.
Well, we know that this particular punishment line is directly below the stadium because Thodin gets delivered there, and then he gets brought straight up into
you're
the
correct,
stadium,
yes.
and then when he goes back straight down, he ends up in this room again.
That's true. That is true. So after they've decided she's going to be blue, and they have like boop, boop, boop on her hair and on her crotch.
Yes.
So they change the color of both anyway. And then they like electrocute her yoni, one might say.
Charge up her yoni.
To charge her up sexually. And then we see the like boop, 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 the like line form scan shrink. Okay. And then stands on the run and he like looks over because as soon as the gate closes, they're like, fugitive on the loose, Stanley Tweedle, and it puts up a picture of him, and then it's like, beware of disguises, and it just shows a bunch of features.
Really bad, like sideburns, beard, mustache.
I know. And then Thodin is finally free. And we
Which
finally
it's
get
interesting that the only disguises that they prepared people to recognize for Stanley Tweedle was bad facial hair.
Yeah. Not any other part of his uniform,
Right.
which I think he wears that uniform the entire show. So it fits. Yeah. And then we get the, like, Thodin finally, like, the thing opens and he just rips his hands free. Like, I love how when they need to get free, they're just like, meh, and they just pull them free. Zev does the same thing. And then when he's freeing all of his friends, they just pull them off. Okay, it's fine. It's another moment of this is a complacent system.
Yeah.
So we'll go with it. And then we get the full shiny loincloth. And luckily, because of the mix-up, the robots think he won the award. So they just let him be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And right when he gets
They
down
did
there.
this to themselves.
I know. Right when he gets down there, Jiggerata, the person in a person suit.
The cannibal.
The cannibal. Jiggerata, the Wicked of Boron 7, who is charged with the cannibalism of men, women, children, and clerics of 62 temples. And she goes, more like 162. And so Thodin runs behind her and frees his little, I'm sorry, there's no better word for this guy, his twink bro. It's like little buddy with the rubber shirt that actually just leaves his nipples uncovered.
Right.
And then rejoins underneath.
Costume choices were made.
I mean, is there a better description for him? I don't think so. I feel like he just kind of checks all the boxes. And so calling him the twink bro just feels right. And then they start freeing the others together. And Jiggerata's like, hello, free me. Don't I look innocent? Says the woman wearing a people suit. Like,
yes,
like
a whole person suit with a hood.
With a hood that is somebody's face and hair and scalp all in one. And she's like, free me, I'll help you. And so he pulls her loose and then she's like, hey, fuck you. And she just jumps down a hole. She's like, Jiggerata out. And she just leaves. And this is when we see the head hood on her hoodie, her people hoodie. She's wearing all skin. When I say a people suit, I mean, she has a man's nipples on the outside of her outfit because she is wearing skin. And Thodin's like, well, I don't have time to deal with that. So he continues freeing all the other prisoners. And then we go back to Zev. And this is like, whoop, 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 whoop. If it feels like I'm talking really fast, it's because this part's really fast. We go really fast and then we slow down. So we just got to get through the fast part. So we go back to Zev. And she can't see because of the eye covers, but the worm rolls in, like the cluster lizard.
Yeah.
And it eats the robot guy because the robot guy is made of people parts. And then, like, gets incorporated into her bio resculpting thing because it gets squished inside of it.
It goes to brainwash her, or is that after?
This is after.
Okay.
So the cluster worm's head goes to eat Zev just as it closes, and it ends up cutting the head off. And so she gets to be part cluster lizard.
When it does her whole body recomposition, rebuilding thing.
So this is why she has superpowers later, and she can pull herself free of her restraints.
Yeah.
And then she sits up and it's like look how pretty she is now. Harp music that plays when she sits up. And then the like reprogramming thing comes down. And this is when she picks up the robot head and she puts it, what's his name? 790 or 690? He has a name and we're going to find it out later. But she puts the robot head into the reprogrammer. And this is when it wakes up and it does the like brown chicka wow wow like once over of Zev, and it's like, I will love you forever. And she's like,
Right. So now all the sex slave or love slave programming
yeah,
is now in this robot head.
yes. And she's like, I don't need this dress no more, because now, of course, the top fits perfectly. Look how that worked. But she still has this really long train, so she rips it off, and now it's a perfect little mini skirt. Oh my God, how did that happen? And then she just dips. And the robot head's like, don't leave me. No one will ever worship you like I do. And this is
But
when
it can
like,
still talk to all the systems.
yeah, so it just brings one of the little robot carts over and hops on it and follows after her. And this is when Zev and Stanley meet officially for the first time, because they're running down the hallway and they're passing each other. And she just goes, nice picture. Because Stanley's
he's all
picture
over
is
all the walls.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're not immediately friends. And both of them are immediately selfish characters, which I kind of love.
Right.
I get a little tired of the, I'm a hero and I'm selfless immediately. No.
We're both fugitives at the same time.
Yeah.
The enemy of my enemy is my
Toy, my
temporary
pawn to use to gain favor with my other enemy. Because the giant robots, which I love these giant robot costumes, they almost look like cicada heads with the long legs. They're chasing them, and Zev first tries to go by them, and this is when the robot head comes up behind her and is like, oh my God, Zev, I'm gonna love you forever. And they're like, oh, Zev, yeah, you're still a fugitive, so we're gonna capture you. So she flees with Stanley, and then she holds him in front of her when the robots are going to shoot.
Yeah.
Like, no, shoot him, not me. And then we cut to the Divine Shadow, because the Divine Shadow is just sitting in a dark room. I mean, if my name was Divine Shadow,
You'd spend a lot of time sitting in dark rooms.
yeah, I mean, that'd be like my thing. And I feel like it is his thing, and it is fair.
Except if he's in a dark room, if there's no lights,
And is he still
there a
casting a
shadow?
shadow? I mean, it's a good question, but he is the shadow, so it's fine. And they tell him, we have a level 3 security break. Hundreds have already been killed. I mean, cluster lizards are loose and eating everyone. And the Divine Shadow is like, General, you have disturbed my meditation. 1. And when it is completed, I will deal with you and this minor matter. Hundreds? Oh, okay. I mean, that's how many people die a minute in our prison block. Look at our conveyor belts.
we'll just sanitize what the cluster lizards left behind and add it to the protein bank.
It's going to be fine. Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Just don't worry about it.
Yeah. And so they end up using the robot head conveniently, because we cut back to Stan and Zev and they can't open this door. And so she just picks up the robot head and she's like, open the door. And he's like, oh, yeah, anything you say, baby. And of course, they immediately run into some cluster lizards, but Zev just screams at them.
With a cluster lizard scream?
Yeah. And then they go past her and they eat the robots.
Sure.
Yeah. And Stanley's like, I'm sorry, what the fuck? And she goes, meh, I guess I have some cluster lizard in me, because she's very German.
Yeah.
And Stanley goes, I could get past that. I love this so much. And then we come back to Thoden on the run with all of his friends, who I know there are other people, but I'm only ever looking at the twink guy, because it like his outfit like pinches his pecs. And so they're like really prominent.
It's weird. It's striking, I guess.
Yes, it's strikingly prominent. His nipples are strikingly prominent. So I'm just like, look at them. Just look at them. Like looking back at me. And then they run into some giant robots. And of course, they congratulate Thoden on earning the medal. And so he's like, great, thanks. And he takes their guns.
And they don't do anything.
They don't do anything. And then just as they're walking away, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, update. Your medal is rescinded and we need to apprehend you. Can you give us back our guns? And he's like, no. And then we go to the Divine Shadow, and he is contemplating this wireframe holographic image of Lexx, the Lexx, which is definitely just a dick floating in the air.
It's a dragonfly with
no
no wings.
Okay. And for some reason, he's questioning these people on their hands and knees. There's so many characters and there's so much happening right now. I honestly lost track of why we were here, except as a cautionary tale. Because he's not asking them questions about like, where are the fugitives? What do they want? Why did you let them go? He just goes, do you think time flows in a line or in a circle?
Which is the right question to ask.
Which it
in
feels
this moment,
like,
right?
It feels like having a conversation with our son. We were out blowing bubbles and he goes, what would happen if a bubble was inside a bubble? And I was like, well, that would be fine because you can have a bubble inside a bubble. They might pop each other or they might merge into one bubble. And he was like, oh, what would happen if you had a rock inside a bubble? It's like, can we just blow bubbles? Do I have to talk about mass and all of this right now? Can we just blow these bubbles? And he's like, if a bubble collapsed in on itself, would it create a black hole? I was like, I don't fucking. So the shadow is like, do you think time flows in a line or in a circle? And the one guy's like, a line? And the shadow goes, yeah, I thought so. Straight line, just beginning all the way to the end, just straight. And that's why prophecy is bullshit. And they're like, that's why prophecy is bullshit. And the shadow says, all right, well, I'm going to let these fugitives get to the special projects area uncontested. And I think this is another, like, I'm going to prove prophecy isn't real by letting this play out.
I'm going to give them every chance. But then, I mean, they're not going to be able to take the Lexx or anything. So
yeah, it'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
The prophecy is bullshit. I'm going to prove it to you by letting the prophecy play out. And then he tells one person to kill the other person. And they do. And then he's like, great, now kill yourself. And this is a really unhinged moment. Because they start praying and then she like shoots herself in the head and dies. And so you get the idea of why characters like Thodin are rebelling against this complacent, communist, capitalist hellscape apocalypse that everybody lives in.
Communist?
I don't know. I'm just combining shit right now.
Fascist?
Fascist, yeah.
Authoritarian.
This is the future Republicans want.
Despotic tyranny?
Yeah. And so, yeah, we cut back to Thodin, and they are climbing up these struts, assumingly to the Lexx, which they're wearing mini skirts. And they are now, okay, it's fine. As long as you're not beneath them and you don't look up, it should be okay. And they start getting shot at. And one of them dies. And then they're like, actually, you know what? Whoops, sorry. We're not going to shoot at you anymore. And they pack their shit up and leave. And Thodin's like, well, I'm not going to question that. And so they climb up.
So far, they have handled this horribly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not unprecedented.
This feels on brand. And we find out that the reason they're doing this is because the Shadow didn't want just anyone to stop Thodin and his band. He wanted Kai to stop Thodin and his band. Because using the Brunnen G to stop the people that would destroy the Lexx feels poetic. Like, I'm going to use the creature that was supposed to destroy me as the thing that will destroy you. Because I am ultimately in control.
He wants to win
with style.
In a way that he can gloat about.
With style.
In multiple ways.
Yeah.
With style.
Yeah. And it did take me like 2 watchings to figure out what the fuck was going on. Because there's a lot happening. Because we're not.
Yeah, there's a lot of fast transitions.
Until we bring all of our characters together, there is a lot of whip, whip, whip around. And he wakes up Kai, and Kai's like, who do you need me to kill? And he goes, you will show my misguided predecessors that I make my own destiny. Okay. And then we cut to Stanley and Zev again, and they're trying to open doors. And so they're holding the robot up because that worked before. And then the robot goes, all access denied except to the gates of my heart.
Which I really like the way they use this robot head.
Yeah.
Because it's a character. Like, this is a main character for the whole show. It's an unusual character. But it's also a really elegant plot device for them to be able to navigate this like fully automated bureaucratic like control system
Yeah.
of this empire. Because like this robot has like a secure device identifier, and it's in all the official records that
Yeah.
this robot has like the default level of permissions for, automatons in the empire. And this one has been subverted and is under the control of Zev,
Yeah.
but it still has all of its permissions and access.
Yeah.
And so Zev and Stanley, they don't have the permissions in the system to be able to open doors, much less like the technology. I don't know, because we don't really see buttons. There's probably just some wireless communication going on between the robot head and the computer systems. So this facilitates Stanley and Zev being able to just run around and open like the regular access doors without having to get all hand wavy about, why are the Shadow's computer systems allowing them to open the doors? Oh, it's because the robot head that already has the secure permissions
Is doing it for them. Every time I see this, all I can think is when this became a show on the Sci-Fi Channel, when it went into syndication on the Sci-Fi Channel, they put out a whole bunch of magazine ads, and one of them was Zev, like the ex-EV Zev, the next Zev, licking 790's head, and like in profile, and then the caption said, "Great head in every episode."
Yeah, which
I'm going to leave it at that.
Encapsulates the vibe.
Yeah. So the only door that will open, besides the gates of 790's heart, is the door to the special projects area. Because
so would you call this show a Canadian sex comedy?
Yeah, a Canadian sci-fi, dark horror sci-fi comedy. It's got a lot of shoes to fill, okay? Luckily, one of the main characters is a dragonfly, which canonically would have 6 legs. Canadian, sci-fi, dark, horror, comedy, sex. Yeah, there you go. 6. That's 6 words. 6 shoes. So the door opens to the special project area because the Shadow was like, yeah, make sure they get to the special projects area uncontested, including Jiggerata, who pops back up. Thank God. Like we missed her, of course.
Yeah.
And the lift that Stanley, Tweedle, and Zev are in is hysterical because they get in this elevator and they're taking it up to the special projects area. And it's like, oh, yeah, I don't recognize you guys. It's the face. The face pops back up. And the face is like, yeah, I don't know who you guys are. So you will be disposed of to become useful organic material for the protein bank or for other uses. Snacks? And then it like opens a snack drawer. And just as Stanley goes to eat snacks, it closes it. And it's like, no, you are not authorized personnel. No snacks for you. The snacks were a lie. And just as they get to the top.
The snacks weren't a lie. The first notification was like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to scan your faces.
Yeah.
And if they're not in our systems, then you're going to die.
Yeah.
Here's a snack while we wait for the authorization requests to go through.
And then, boop, never mind. You don't get them.
And they were very efficient at the facial recognition.
How long had those snacks been in there? Do the snacks get refreshed?
I bet they have a whole automated system to refresh those, because you wouldn't want some high-level bureaucrat to get in there, going up to the special projects area.
And get eaten by a cluster worm.
And then this snack drawer opens, and it goes to grab one, and they're moldy.
Yeah.
And then he gets mad at a bunch of people and like has them executed or whatever.
Yeah.
They're going to design the system to not offend the people with the like whim level power. They can just command things and that happens to their underlings.
Right.
The underlings would protect themselves with automated systems to keep the upper level people happy.
Yeah. Well, they end up getting to the top. I don't remember how they get out. I watched this 4 times, and honestly, there were a couple parts where I don't
Well,
remember.
they get to the top of the elevator and Thodin's waiting for them.
Yeah, but how do they get out of it? How do they not get killed? Oh, I guess they would have gotten apprehended at the top.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Mhm.
And Thodin is there because, of course, they've climbed all the way up. And they're getting ready to grab Stanley. And he's like, no, I'm Austral B. Like, I'm with you guys. I'm one of the cool kids. And they're like, Stanley fucking Tweedle? He's like, yeah.
We thought you died.
It's me. And they're like, oh my God. Stanley.
Hey, Thodin.
the-
Long time no see.
The arch traitor, Stanley Tweedle. And he's like, I mean, yeah, that's me. And they're all getting ramped up. And then Zev is like, hey, has anybody noticed how hot I am? And they're all like, you make a compelling argument.
Let's go.
Let's go.
There are higher priorities here. Let's get to a place where we can.
But nothing higher than that push-up bra. Like, it's got lift. And then Stanley Tweedle is like, oh my God, is that the Lexx? Can you believe they grew that from some amino acids in my tooth? How many teeth has he given up to his courier business?
A lot.
Yeah.
Luckily, all the food in the cluster is liquid, so he doesn't have to chew anything.
How do you know all the food in the cluster is liquid?
Because he's missing a lot of teeth.
Oh,
it would be extremely convenient.
I was like, did I miss a scene?
If he was able to just drink all of his sustenance with
Please
a straw.
Please don't.
Meat shake.
No, stop. Stop. Gross.
Protein
Stop.
back milkshake.
But Thodin is not done yelling at Stanley. He needs to unload a little bit. I mean, Zev is hot, and that sort of kept him from wanting to kill Stanley right now. But also, he's like, do you remember Ericon? I think it's Ericon 6. Erico or whatever.
Erico's the planet.
Yeah. He's like, millions died on Ericos that I could have the key to the Lexx. And they're bioprogrammers. He's like, they're bioprogrammers, gave me the key to the Lexx or whatever. And I always feel so much respect for actors when they have to deliver these really dramatic lines that have these really ridiculous words in them.
Yeah.
Like, I stand for Austral B. Okay,
And he delivers.
He does.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying he doesn't. I just it's like in Star Trek when they have to have a sentence that is composed almost completely of made up technology words.
Yeah.
And they have to say them with conviction. That would be hard. And they're getting ready to run into the Lexx because he holds up his hand and it's like, and it like
shimmery
color shimmers across it. And he's like, I had the keys with a Lexx. And they're getting ready to go in, and then we hear caw. Which I want somebody to make a fan edit where every time he uses his little like projectile weapon, Kai's projectile weapon, it makes like an eagle sound and it always says eagle screech in the subtitles. I want somebody to change that all to a chicken clucking. So it's like, and then it like comes back to him. Yeah. You can do the egg song. If you have chickens, they have a call that they make when they've laid an egg and it's like they're like standard barnyard chicken sound that's like, oh, everybody, I laid an egg. And if there's a whole bunch of them and they're close, they'll all do it together. Like, she laid an egg, y'all. Look, this is so great. That's what we need. And instead of the like eagle sound, I don't know. It's such a choice. But he appears and he immediately kills somebody. He like hits them with his eagle laser retractable metal claw arm thing. And so they start shooting at him and he does this like momentary side stumble like, and they're like, oh no, he's been decarbonized. And I would like to point out that earlier they shot a door and the door melted.
It was carbonized steel.
Okay. So it's not just inanimate objects that can't be shot. It's you literally have to be free of carbon. They're like, is anyone going to care? And they're like, no, man. A dude with a beehive, a braid, and framing bangs is walking at them and shooting them with an like eagle sound weapon. No one cares that when you shoot him, he doesn't die. Okay, I'm just checking. Because it's weird that he doesn't die, though. Like, he's been decarbonized. It's fine. And they just accept it. They're like, oh, shit, decarbonized. Damn it. What is he made of now?
Just don't worry about it.
Okay. It's fine. It's fine. So he transfers the key. He like swipes his thumb across his forehead.
Maybe it's one of those terms that someone just threw out. Like when something is carbonized, it's this. When something is decarbonized, it's this. And then later they're like, guys, it actually has nothing to do with the carbon.
It's fine.
But the term sticks.
Yeah. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Thodin like swipes his thumb across his forehead and he's like, it's more than my life that matters. And he like holds his hand out and then his little twink bro like holds his hand up and it's supposed to be this dramatic moment, but also this guy is like 12 inches shorter. So it's a very like bear twink bro moment. And he's just like, take my light from my hand. And he's like, okay. And so it like transfers the key to he probably has a name, but TB to TB. Okay. And he's like, save Zev because she's hot. So he like grabs her and he's like, beauty such as yours must live on. And he like makes out with her for a second and then shoves her through the door. He's like, yoink, and sticks her through the door.
I know. And then she's like, wait.
I know. Then the door shuts and she's like, Thodin. And Thodin's like, I definitely probably could have gone in directly behind them. And Kai doesn't have a key. He can't get in. He could have just followed them.
He probably does have a way to open the doors.
He's
though.
Decarbonized. So anyway, he stays behind to fight Kai. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And Zev is like, everyone always leaves me. Earlier we got her saying life's not fair, and then she's like, everyone always leaves me. And then 790, that's his name, the little robot head, is like, I won't leave you. I like 790. And then Thodin tells Kai that he's Brunin G. He's like, what are you doing? I think I know
Brunin why
G?
you like 790.
Why?
Because all the things that 790 says to Zev are things that I say to you.
Are you like my little pre-programmed robot? Hey, you also have lots of permissions you should not have on many technological spaces.
Oh, no. Those are totally legitimate permissions.
Okay, it's fine. So Thodin is like, dude, did you know you're Brunin G? And Kai's like, the shit? What? No.
Yeah, it makes him pause for a second.
Just long enough for Thodin to pull out his own eye. He like, so he had a bug bomb up his nose.
So extra.
He had a bug bomb up his nose. One of his eyes is an invisibility potion because he throws it down and he becomes invisible.
I'm just imagining
What's
Thodin
under the mini skirt.
I'm just imagining Thodin like with his, at like when 007 goes to Q, like his device wizard, and they're like, okay, we're just going to give you these little capsules. They'll be inserted like under the skin, or like they'll be implanted alongside your ribs or like under your skin or something. It'll be super easy to just pop them out. And like this one's, you'll have a couple of them. There'll be invisibility potions. You'll have a couple of them. There'll be whatever. And he's like, no, I want it in my eye.
The whole eye? Yes, sir. The whole eye.
I want to be able to pull out my whole eye and have that be an invisibility potion. It's poetic that the thing that sees generates my invisibility.
Yeah, I feel like Thodin had that exact conversation.
Yeah. But then you can only have one of them because you need a real eye.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's like, I'll only need one.
I kind of wish they hadn't rushed this and we would just have him slowly losing body part by body part as he's just like, he takes off his hand and his hand starts running around like Thing.
Yeah.
From the Addams Family. And then like he takes his leg off below the knee.
Takes off an ear to generate a silence bubble.
Right. And then like he ends up completely deconstructing himself and he's just laying on the floor and Kai just walks over him because he's taken everything off. Like he reaches under his mini skirt and you just hear zzz, like a zipper sound. And then he pulls out 2 bombs and he like throws the bombs. Like I wanted it to keep going, but no, it ends pretty quickly because he cuts the top off Kai's head, which this is a really cool effect where they have the actor clearly below the floor.
Yeah, there's a hole in the floor.
Yeah.
And it's very form-fitted around his head.
It looks really cool because he cuts off like just the top half of his head, but it's cool. He's decarbonized. He's going to be fine. And so then Stanley and Zev, we cut back to them and they're following TB through the hallways. And I don't have to think about what to call him anymore because he immediately gets eaten by a cluster lizard. And they go around the corner and just his hand is sticking out of this cluster lizard's mouth. And so Stanley does like a whoop whoop wave, like a wah, wah. Bye, buddy. And his little wave is enough to get him the key to the Lexx. It like
Yeah. Well,
shoots
I
over his
think,
hand.
I think TB just shoots it out blindly.
Yeah.
Maybe he knows Zev is there. I don't know. But it hits Stanley's hand.
Yeah. And Stanley gets it. And then we go back out and Kai is using his hawk weapon. So caw motherfuckers. Or and then Stanley, back to Stanley. Stanley runs off and hides in a bug transport. They have like
like the Brune and G
Yeah.
used when they fought 2008 years ago.
right. And Zev is getting ready to get in, and then Jiggerata pops up and how did she get in the Lexx? How did Jiggerata get in the Lexx?
I think they just opened all the doors
It's fine. It doesn't matter.
so that anybody could get through.
Every-
More people get into the Lexx, the more impressive it will be when
they defeat everybody.
his divine shadow defeats all of them.
I
And
mean, the
reclaims
cluster
Lexx.
lizards got in. So
Yeah.
however the cluster lizards got in, she got in.
Yep.
And then Jiggerata gets in the ship with Stanley and tries to push him out. And then they end up falling on the gear shift, which the gear shift looks like a ball sack. It's like fleshy and it has hair.
Yeah.
It's the grossest thing.
They commit to the bit.
There were tons of very moist looking fake brains in this, and yet this hairy gear shift is the grossest thing in this episode. And Zev ends up riding on the leg of the transport as they fly it off because they have to fly this thing all the way to the bridge of the Lexx because the Lexx
Right, 'cause
is
they're at
so
the-
big.
The long dragonfly body,
Yeah.
they get on at the end of the tail.
And they have to go all the way to the front.
And
And-
it's like in Event Horizon, where
Yeah.
they have this long bridge that's just like a hallway
Yeah.
between the back end, the engineering section of the ship, and the like control and living space of the ship.
Yeah. And the best part about this for 790 is that she has to hug him to her chest to keep him with her as they're flying. And he's like, "Ah, yes." And this is when Thodin actually cuts Kai's head off, but he's already dead, so that doesn't work. And then they come back and land on the bridge of the Lexx. And Zev and Jiggerata battle it out for a minute. And I'm kind of mad that Zev couldn't just beat Jiggerata. Like, did eating other people let her absorb their power or something?
I think Zev hasn't realized.
How strong she is yet?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
at this point in Zev's head, she's been this like spunky, like sarcastic, I don't know, unattractive lady who's just been trying to get by.
Yeah.
And now she like, why is everyone so nice to her all of a sudden? And like she's still getting used to her new body.
Yeah.
And then this lady in a man suit grabs her, and she's still kind of in shock,
Yeah.
probably about the whole body transformation thing. So it's not till later that she really realizes, oh wow, I'm actually like
super
kind of
strong.
strong,
Yeah.
and I can have this effect on men and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it ends up being a draw. Nobody wins. And then Zev is just like, later. Like she does the point at her eyes, point at Jiggerata.
Right. There's nothing personal between them. They're both just trying to survive.
Right. And
At this
well, I
moment.
mean, Jiggerata's just chaos. But yeah. The wicked. She's wicked.
Right.
And then Thodin ends up getting killed by Kai. We go back and Kai does his like, caw, which that's going to get really annoying if I keep doing it. But guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep doing it. And then Kai reassembles himself. He like stumbles around, finds his head. And we do this like pan around his feet thing
Mm-hmm.
where we transition to not the actor's head so that he can lift up.
Yeah, we
this
can have
piece.
one continuous shot going from his feet to his head.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to his head, he has his hands on his actual head.
Yeah. It was
And so,
pretty cool.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, it works really cool. And then Thodin is like, today Thodin, bleh, and he like falls over dead. That's the end of Thodin.
He's so extra. He goes out trying to.
Self-aggrandizement was one of his crimes, and he committed it to the
being
end.
extra.
Being extra. Guilty. Guilty of being extra. And so now Zev, Jigurata, and Stanley are all in the Lexx, and Kai is after them. And that is like the first part setup of the episode. So I think we're going to leave it here, and then we'll do the second half for the second part.
Sounds
because this is our only like long movie length episode. This isn't over 90 minutes long, this first episode.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a good place to leave it so we don't end up with a
And
mammoth
we're
4
already
hour.
at over 90 minutes.
I know. And we're getting to the good part, like the part where we're going to talk about like Kai's going to figure out who he is and all that stuff. So we'll leave it here, and then we will come back and do part 2 next week. And I think we're going to release these on Mondays, just like we did for Come In 81 Kilo, which if you are missing us in the meantime and you haven't listened, we have already done all of Forever Night, and it is on Come In 81 Kilo. Just
A
look it
Forever
up.
Night podcast.
A Forever Night podcast, available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And we're hoping to do a couple more bonus episodes on that eventually. So if you follow us or subscribe to us there, you'll get a notification when we post new episodes.
Because there are some books.
There's books, and there's still some actors that maybe would do an interview. I don't know. We'll just have to see how that goes. So in the meantime, I worship his shadow.
May his shadow fall upon you.
Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye.
1 to 3 organs?
Yeah. He'll have to donate 1 to 3 organs depending on demand.